I get asked fairly often these days, what do I want or what am I expecting that we will get when Anthem 2.0/next releases? So I'm finally caving in today and giving you all my wish list for the update. But before we get into the video, I wanted to give a very special thank you to today's sponsor, Skillshare. I'm incredibly excited to be working with them as I am a huge proponent for continued learning and their courses do an absolutely phenomenal job with it. For those of you freelancers who may not know, Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. Skillshare offers classes designed for real life, so you can move your creative journey forward without putting life on hold. You can learn and grow with short classes that fit your busy routine, such as audio and video editing, photography, and even courses on how to start streaming and content creation effectively. The first 500 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 2 free months of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. I've personally been watching Real Productivity, How to Build Habits That Last taught by Thomas Franks, and Ali Saunders, How to Save Time Editing and Edit More Efficiently in Adobe Premiere Pro. You guys know that I don't often do sponsorships, but when I do, the programs are absolutely worth it, and that is especially true of Skillshare. So thank you again so much to Skillshare for today's sponsorship, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now, none of these items on the list are in a specific order, but the featured store overhaul was actually the first thing that came to mind. Considering that Anthem has been on sale for months on end, the featured store is really how BioWare makes their money back to give us those free updates, like the seasonal events, Cataclysm, any major game updates, and so on and so forth. So it is a necessary evil. That being said, there could be a better way to go about the featured store. For one, coin earnage is very few and far between. It takes close to 2 weeks to grind up enough coins for an armor set, and the armor sets only come on the Friday through Monday time slots. And that's not including decals, vinyls, wraps, materials, you name it, emotes. One of Anthem's strongest points is no doubt its cosmetic game. And one of the biggest parts of endgame right now, at least in my personal opinion, is Fashion Forge. Now, like I said before, Anthem needs the featured store to fund updates and development. I get that. I'm all for it. But maybe the featured store could use a slight tweaking, similar to what Warframe does. For those of you who don't know, Warframe's featured store, or quote-unquote featured store, basically lets you have everything all at once. You can buy skins, armor attachments, Syandanas, weapon skins, the list goes on. And they do cycle in and cycle out stuff regularly, though some stuff is always available. That's what I would like to see with Anthem. Especially when it comes to new players coming into the game for the first time, they have to wait weeks on end for a decent armor set or for items or materials that they could be spending either coin on or real-world currency on. As the featured store currently stands, it uses the exclusivity principle of business, basically meaning you don't know when this armor set is going to be back in the store again, if ever. There are several armor sets, as a matter of fact, materials, emotes, the usual, that have not come back into rotation since their first 3 to 4 day tenure. Anyways, bottom line, I would like to see that change in the featured store. The second item on my list is a true social hub. Fort Tarsis kind of feels dead, if you know what I mean. NPCs just stand around, or they've been in the same position since launch. You can't really interact with companions like Yarrow, Faye, and Halleck, and the fort just feels dead. You go into the launch bay, sure, and you've got the other freelancers around, and at least it's a little more lively. What I would like to see is a new Fort Tarsis, a Fort Tarsis 2.0, where you can actually see other players running around in there, accepting quests, and so on and so forth. Some way to show that the world is alive and breathing. The third up on my list is the stat screen, and I still don't understand how we are almost a year into the game and we don't have some sort of stat screen to speak of. Basically, as it currently stands, we have to remember all the stats of our weapons, gear attachments, everything, and how they apply to our javelin. And more times than not, we don't believe that they're actually doing their job. For example, I don't feel like a 250 damage increase to my javelin abilities is actually being applied. And without a piece of paper over at the left-hand side of my keyboard to tally up all my points and such, I don't know my true stats. Plain and simple, if Anthem is going to have random roll stats on weapons, it needs a stat screen of some sort, and I know that's been one of the most widely requested features Anthem get at some point in time from the community. Up next is a true difference between legendary gear and masterwork gear. Right now, Now, legendary gear is marginally better than a piece of masterwork gear. There's really nothing too special about a legendary item, except that it can do marginally more damage. What I would like to see in the future is possibly intrinsic stats or intrinsic abilities to legendary gear to separate them from masterwork gear. Let's say, for example, you have a legendary Jara's Wrath. The intrinsic perk for the legendary Jara's Wrath could be if the enemy dies to the electric voltage from Jara's Wrath, it'll explode in an electric, explosion, and it'll chain to enemies. That way it separates it from the masterwork variant of Jara's Wrath, thereby making it more valuable and feel like you're actually using a legendary weapon, as opposed to just a weapon with marginally more damage. Also, maybe some sort of reroll system in there too, because God knows I'm tired of grinding out a steam vent that has more than 2 charges on it. Number 5 on my list is enemies actually taking recoil on damage, aka not bullet sponges. Yes, enemies sometimes can get knocked down or frozen or whatever, but more or less enemies are just bullet sponges. They just stand there and take damage. And one of the things that the Division does right is that enemies do take damage based on where they're being hit, or they do take damage on where they are being hit. For example, if I'm shooting a guy in the shoulder, his weapon will strafe slightly out of the way and he will take that damage. He will act like he's getting shot there. I don't quite know what that's called in game development, but bullet registration or ragdoll effect or whatever, I would like to see something like that in the future, just so that enemies don't feel like giant bullet sponges. Number 6 on my list is new challenging strongholds, and what I mean by that is something with an actual challenge associated with it, not just some sort of mechanic. For example, Tyrant Mine. There's no unique mechanic or special puzzle to complete this stronghold. All you have to do is kill a bunch of enemies here, kill a bunch of enemies there, go kill the Tyrant Queen, you're done. What I would like to see are more strongholds similar to the Sunken Cell, where you have to actually complete puzzles to progress through the stronghold. Or maybe the puzzles are optional based on your difficulty setting. Say I do it easy through hard mode, you don't exactly get all the puzzles, but if I do it GM1, there's another puzzle added, do it GM2, another puzzle, GM3, add another puzzle. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. I just want more challenging content. Speaking of more challenging content, number 7 on my list is raid-like content. One of the ways that the Destiny community survives and how they get people coming back week after week after week is their raids. Raids that reward them with unique weapons and gear that they cannot get anywhere else, and it is the ultimate endgame. Not to mention, it requires the same amount of understanding and coordination and communication. All the above are things that Anthem lacks right now. Not to mention, this would potentially give us the opportunity to have more freelancers in a squad. In other words, instead of 4-man content, maybe 6 or 8-man content. But moral of the story is, Anthem needs more challenging endgame content. Number 8 on my list is different maps and biomes. Yes, I agree with you all for the most part. We should have new maps and biomes and things that we can go out and do. I am getting relatively tired of Bastion as a whole, so maybe we can go and explore a new territory like Anthem. Or something different, you know? Maybe a desert biome or another area of the planet, because Coda is gigantic. Coda being the name of the world of Anthem. We don't need to go to new planets like I've seen a lot of you discuss, we just need to get more expansion into the world and really fill it out. Number 9 on the list is skill trees and specific classes. Now I see all the time that you all want new javelins, and I understand that. However, that takes development time and assets away from the other javelins. In other words, less armor sets, less balancing, or more work on the dev's end. We've already got the 4 main archetypes. We've got a caster, we've got an all-around, we've got an assassin, and we've got a tank. What we need is more specialization for these classes. In other words, turning the Colossus into a true tank, or maybe making an artillery Colossus. New ultimate abilities, things to actually invest in skill trees to specialize your javelins even more. If we had that in Anthem, you have no idea how happy I would be. Plus, that would give more opportunities for builds, like true builds, not just, oh, I got randomly lucky and got an Eternal Squall with 3 charges on it. True, honest-to-goodness builds that you can build around your teammates or based on what is needed by the group as a whole. The last item on my list is the one that's personally nearest and dearest to my heart. I am, like so many of you, a BioWare veteran where I'm used to insane storytelling, a whole lot of lore, and decisions that truly impact how the journey goes about. I want a greater focus on story, more impactful decisions, more cinematics, and more lore. The game has so much potential in all these areas that they just don't utilize to their fullest extent in my personal opinion. Whenever we're going throughout the story, we've got the option between number 1 or number 2. And no matter what, it results in the same exact way. For instance, whenever we had the Owen situation where he was betraying us, there were 100 other things that I could have said or would have said, or that I would have liked for my freelancer to have said, but there wasn't enough character development, i.e. just a 1 or 2 option, to make that kind of impactful decision with Owen. Personally, it just feels like I'm on autopilot whenever we're going throughout the stories. You're picking 1 or 2. 1 is a heroic, kind freelancer, and 2 is a smartass freelancer. I mean, there's not really much differentiation at the end of the day. And the cinematics team on Anthem is rivaled second to none. Why we haven't gotten more cinematics is beyond me, to be completely honest with you. Even a cinematic to start off a new season would be better than nothing. The last cinematic we got was all the way back at Cataclysm. And lastly, the lore. It seems like Anthem's lore is scattered all over the place. There's no one thing that pinpoints it or nails it down. And I get it, Anthem is a wild and ever-changing world and universe. But there needs to be some sort of consistency. There needs to be some sort of fleshed out feeling to the lore, and that it's not all up in the air. Something to ground down the histories and what's actually going on in the greater world of Coda. But anyways, freelancers, there you go, my top 10 wish list for Anthem 2.0. What did you all think of the video, and what thoughts do you have on what 2.0 could bring, or do you have your own wish list? Let me know in the comments section below, as I really do read through all of your comments, and I will reply if there is conversational potential. I also wanted to give a very special thank you to my patrons and channel members for their very generous donations and support of the channel, as always. I hope all of you fantastic freelancers have a phenomenal day, and I'm looking forward to seeing each and every last one of you in the next video very soon. And remember, freelancers, we are strong alone, but we are so much stronger together.